Welcome to Deep Sky Lab, on location here in beautiful Maui, Hawaii. I'm gonna be on the beach tonight to do a full systems test of the whole travel rig before my epic journey. I wanna make sure everything is working. The focuser, the mount, the camera, the control systems, the back spacing, and apparently also my outfit. This was so dumb. I am so hot right now. Because once you get here, you really don't want any of those critical systems to fail. We're at about 10,000 feet on the summit of Haleakalā. It's cold. The wind can kick up out of nowhere with no notice. Batteries don't last as long. Some of these cables can get stiff. Focus will shift as the temperature changes, and the temperature changes here can be pretty crazy. And if you're unlucky, you can get dew or even frost on parts of the telescope, because that's how cold it can be up here. Behind me over here, these professional observatories have giant domes and really nice climate controlled rooms to keep everything happy. I've got this beginner-sized travel rig that's just exposed out here to the raw elements under a moon that is way too bright for deep sky imaging. It's basically a spotlight. Hopefully by the end of the night, we can answer two questions. One, is it still worth it to bring an astrophotography rig on vacation when the moon is basically a spotlight? And two, if you do, which type of filter might actually save your night and make all of this worth it? All right, let's back this up for a second and take a trip to the beach one more time to finish that system test, or else I will have come all the way up here for no reason. I'm Francisco, this is Deep Sky Lab, and I brought a beginner-sized telescope travel rig all the way up to Hawaii's 10,000 foot peak on Haleakalā to see what it can do under real skies. Let's roll the intro. Right now, there's almost 1,000 of you subscribed to the channel where we bring you chaos like this. So if you enjoy watching a beginner bringing his snow gear to a tropical island like Hawaii just to test out his travel setup, make sure to hit that subscribe button to push this channel over that 1,000 mark. Tonight, I'm gonna do a shakedown of my travel setup on this beach behind me before trusting it on top of that amazing mountain. So here's what I brought to Maui. We've got the RedCat 51 as the telescope that we're going to use. It's 51mm aperture, 250mm focal length. We've got the ASI2600MC Duo for imaging and for guiding. It's got the dual chip sensor so that I didn't have to bring an additional scope and camera and all that stuff. We've got a ZWO electronic automatic focus motor because we're going to stick with all ZWO parts because we brought an ASI Air Plus to do all the control. My hope is that I'll be able to connect to it with my phone from inside the car so that I'm not sitting outside in 30-degree temperature all night. All of this is riding on the Skywatcher AZ GTI, which we do have on a wedge so that we can get really good polar alignment and we won't have any field rotation of anything that we're taking pictures of. And that itself is sitting on a really nice small carbon fiber tripod that folds up to be about this big, and that's all the space that it takes in my luggage. Okay, the mount itself is running right now on 8 AA batteries, and it's talking to the ASI Air via Wi-Fi. Now, I haven't really used this in the field very much. I've done it from the backyard a couple times. So that's one of the things I want to test tonight. How long do those batteries last? And is there any weirdness with the Wi-Fi? I'd rather solve that now than when I'm up there. The nice thing about that is, though, that the mount is entirely self-contained. There are no power or data cables running from the AZ GTI to the ASI Air. It's totally self-contained, and that is kind of the dream for a travel rig. But I've been burned before, and I don't trust it. So I did bring with me the USB cable to control the mount and a spare power cable, just in case anything goes weird. You can't really get one of these USB cables just at any store. So I did want to bring that with me. All right, everything else, the ASI Air, the camera, the focuser, I'm gonna power with one of these USB-C to 12 volt cables. So it goes from USB Type-C to the DC 5.5 by 2.1 cable that we're all used to, and this can supply up to 65 watts, which is way overkill for everything that we're doing tonight. And I can power it off this USB battery bank, which I use for basically all my other electronics. This is capable of, this has a capacity of 154 watt hours. Now, this setup in my testing will take between 15 and 20 watts to run. So I've got, at sea level, under normal temperatures, I don't know, up to about 10 hours worth of runtime. We'll see if that holds up when it's 30 degrees outside. I'll link to the exact USB cable and some of the other stuff that I'm using down in the description. Yes, they are affiliate links. If you buy one, it does help fund my poor life decisions, like trying to bring a snow jacket to a tropical island. So the goal this evening is not to get some award-winning image from the beach, although these skies are still way better than the ones I have in my backyard. The goal is to find those problems, because there's an Ace Hardware about 3 miles that way that I can go to in case I've got anything that I need. The checklist for tonight's gonna be pretty simple. Can the AZ GTI and wedge track smoothly? Do I reach any limits when I'm trying to do polar alignment? Because we're at, I think, 20 degrees versus the 38 that I'm usually at home. So I wanna make sure that I can get good polar alignment. Does the focus motor hit and hold focus? If you watched my video that I'll link up here, you can see when I tried shooting A6 Lemon, I had a problem that first night where I couldn't reach focus, so I wanna make sure that's taken care of. And does the ASI Air stay connected over Wi-Fi, and how far away can I get from it? And lastly, will these USB Type-C PD cables keep everything powered up for at least a couple hours? Because it takes about an hour and a half to get up there from where I'm at. So if I'm gonna be driving 3 hours round trip, I wanna make sure that I can get, I don't know, at least 3 hours of power from a setup like this.
So that first night's beach testing went really well. There was enough counterweight to balance the scope out correctly. I was able to shift it just right. I did a full polar alignment, and even though Polaris is considerably lower in Hawaii than it is in my night sky, I was able to reach adjustment, and I think I still had a little bit more that I could do. The focus motor had no damage in transit and was able to smoothly focus in and out, and the backspacing was perfect. I did check with the filters and without the filters, and all of that worked really well. The ASI Air Pro Wi-Fi stability was good. It seems to be a little particular on how you position the antenna, but with line of sight and the antenna pointing up, I was able to get 20 to 30 feet away without any noticeable degradation in the speed that images were being refreshed on my phone, although it did seem a little finicky. The USB-C to 12-volt power delivery cable runs and power limits all were well within what we needed, and I was able to see that the mount and the whole setup only consumed about 15 watts. And like I said, I ran that on the beach for about an hour, and I think I consumed maybe 10% of my battery bank. So I was fairly confident that we would be able to run this all night. The AA batteries within the mount seem to be working okay, although we'll talk more about that in a little bit, as I did end up having issues with that.
Welcome back to 10,000 feet. So the mount is still running off those AA batteries with Wi-Fi to the ASI Air. I am keeping a very close eye on that connection, and I've got those backup cables that I talked about in the bag, just in case Volcano Wi-Fi decides it wants to go offline. So this will be the exact same travel rig as the beach, same astrophotographer, but a completely different environment. And there's one more problem with tonight, which I mentioned earlier, the moon. I timed this trip absolutely perfectly if I was a regular tourist. As an amateur astrophotographer, it's almost a full moon, which is about as bad as you can get, and pretty terrible for deep sky imaging. But that's really why I think we're gonna lean into it as opposed to pretending that it's not happening. We're gonna use it to our advantage. So here's the experiment. I was gonna try and shoot the Pleiades, but it's basically right next to the moon, so that's not gonna happen. So instead what we're gonna do is park this rig on that area sort of in Orion that's the Horsehead and the Flame, and compare 3 different filters under this bright moon, but under pristine skies. So we're gonna try a simple UV IR cut filter. We're gonna try the SVBONY SV240 multi-narrowband and the much tighter SVBONY SV220 dual band. SVBONY didn't sponsor this video. I bought these filters with my own cash, but I do have affiliate links to them down in the description. So if you decide, one of them makes sense for you and your setup, the channel does get a little bit of commission on that, and it doesn't actually cost you anything extra. We're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers, which is sort of a big internal benchmark within YouTube's creator ecosystem. So I would appreciate it. Help small channels like myself find the right audiences. If you found this interesting, make sure you get subscribed.
Okay, it's now 2 days later and we're back from Hawaii. We're now on the other side of the full moon. So sky illumination from the moon is going to be about the same as it was when we were up on top of the mountain. But I'm back under my, Bortle 6 to 7 suburban skies. I'm going to grab some comparison shots right now. That's what I'm doing with this 2600 on this mount that I'll be talking about in a future video. You'll hear about this mount. It arrived while we were gone. And really one of the things I want to talk about is, with those filters in Bortle 1 skies, how does it compare to those filters in Bortle 6 or 7 skies? Again, trying to really come to a conclusion around traveling for astrophotography, or bringing your astrophotography equipment along if you happen to be traveling, even if it is a full moon. So I have some notes here from the field. I took these notes while we were out on top of the mountain. The AA batteries in the AZ GTI, based on my experiments now, will last you 5 to 6 hours. That's in sort of normal to ideal conditions. I had been testing that mount on the beach and a couple nights before I left just to make sure everything worked. So I had a total runtime on those AA batteries of about, I'd say, 2 to 3 hours before I left. And when I got up to the top of the mountain, after about 2 hours, it started acting really weird, and I'll play a video of what it was doing. It had to do a meridian flip, which is where the mount goes from pointing on one side, it basically flips all the way around and points the other way. And when the ASI Air asked the mount to do the meridian flip, it just freaked out. So luckily I had backup cables, and I was able to connect the mount directly to the ASI Air, so I was able to get around that. Wi-Fi didn't do as well as I was hoping. There's weirdly a lot of radio interference. I don't know if you could hear on the mic from when I was up there. You could hear weird crackling and popping. There's a lot of radio interference up there. Maybe it had to do with the observatories or something, but the Wi-Fi wasn't very strong. So I couldn't, even if I was maybe 10 feet away from the mount, I couldn't get a stable connection from inside the car. So I ended up having to put the iPad on the hood of the car, and I could see the screen from the inside. But I had to do that so that I wouldn't have to stay out in the cold the whole night. What else do we have here? Oh, it got really windy. The end of the night for us up there was probably 2:30 in the morning local time, and the wind just started picking up. So all of the images that I took with the SV220 filter, which is the dual narrowband, they have some star streaking, and that's just because the lip of the telescope dew shield here was picking up a wind sort of gust and rotating it a little bit. I tried putting my backpack in front of it. I tried standing in front of it to see if I can get it to be better, but the guiding got really rough. So that's really unfortunate, but it shouldn't really affect our signal to noise ratio calculations too much. And let me get to those. So I'll show up on the screen the areas that I used for signal and the areas that I used for noise. I tried getting basically the same areas in each of those three groups. So Unfiltered, SV220, and SV240. The calculated signal to noise ratio per hour was, for the SV220, was 2.9. For the no filter / UVIR, it was 3.6. And then for the SV240, it was 5.9. So the SV240, which has a more broad sort of reception of photons, because it's got wider band passes, and based on the spec sheets, the SV220 at HA has about a 94% transmission rate, and the SV240 at HA has about a 97% transmission rate. So it's just letting more light through, but also it has that additional tail of like pass through in the higher frequencies. So I think that had something to do with it. I think if I was to do this again and I wanted to run the SV220, I would do longer exposures, but I don't know that I'll travel with the SV220. I think if you just look at the pictures here, the coloring on the SV220 looks a little weird to me, and I think that's because it's those two really narrow strips of light that's letting through. I think when I travel, I'm just going to take the SV240, and if you compare it to Unfiltered, it helped kill some of that like background glow. But the SV220, I think, for my personal taste, was a little too aggressive. And target selection may play a role in this. That Horsehead area does have a lot of HA and O2, but, maybe not enough. Maybe a more, distinct target that is primarily in emission nebula would be cleaner. But honestly, this feels like a pretty good target to test out filters like this. I feel like this was almost ideal conditions. So yeah, next time I travel, which will probably be with this setup here, with, again, this mount that I'll show off in a future video, I will probably just be taking the SV240 filter. And again, there'll be links down in the description to all of this. Yeah, so I'm going to go back inside because here in Southern California, it is also extremely cold. I think it's like 49 degrees right now. But next up, I'll probably be showing off the images from this night under these skies, so we can compare, the top of Mount Haleakalā to an average suburban backyard. All right, so I'm going to go get warm again. Thanks. I've got the notes from the images that I was able to take from the backyard here. Again, Bortle, I don't know, like 6 skies. I did Unfiltered, SV220, and SV240. So I'll put those up on the screen now. Actually, I'm going to just put them all up, zoomed in on the Horsehead area. And we'll just start walking through these. So for the home ones, for Unfiltered, we got an SNR per hour of 1.7. For the SV220, we got 4.1, which is kind of amazing. And for the SV240, we got 2.6. As a reminder, for the Haleakalā ones, it was 3.6, 3.6 for Unfiltered, 3.8 for the SV220, and 5.9 for the SV240. So across all experiences, anywhere you were, the best SNR was the SV240 from Bortle 1 skies, which makes sense. And the worst was Unfiltered from home. And again, these images were taken basically on either side of a full moon, and these stacked images were 10 images, 300 seconds each. Now, there's a couple of weird things, like the Haleakalā SV220 image had a calculated SNR per hour of only 3.8, where the home image had a calculated SNR per hour of 4.1. Now, there's a couple reasons I think that happened. One, I shot that first when we were up on top of the mountain. After sunset, it was astronomical night, but it was still pretty low on the horizon, and I think there might have been a bunch of like sky glow, essentially, from having to shoot through that much atmosphere. I was looking back through the metadata. The SV240, both of those sets of images were shot at around just past midnight. So the home and the Haleakalā were shot just past midnight. So the Horsehead region was pretty high in the sky. And the Unfiltered was both shot at around 11-ish p.m. And so again, from those two locations, it was pretty high in the sky. Now, the SV220, when I shot it here at home, that one I did last, so I shot that at 1 in the morning, and that's why it got a signal to noise ratio of 4.1. And the Haleakalā one, I shot really early, like might have been about 8 p.m. is what I'm looking at from the data, and that one only showed a 3.8. The other problem was that the tracking wasn't that good on the Haleakalā SV220 image. So I think there's a series of factors that are affecting that one. The conclusion that I wanted to get to here, though, was, if you're planning a trip and you have a lightweight astrophotography rig, should you bring it with you? I think you should. I think if your alternative is your backyard, say anything, Bortle 4 and above, you'll have about a 2x improvement in the signal to noise ratio per hour from like a true dark site like the top of Mount Haleakalā, even if it is a full moon. I will do a follow-up video in the future on the same 3 filters with the same cameras, with the same camera and the same telescope and the same target when there's no moon in the sky here at home, because I am interested to see how those compare. But the conclusion I can come to is this: make sure your tracking is good, right? Because I think the tracking really ruined one of my sets of data, the Haleakalā SV220 set. So make sure your tracking is good. Take that setup, because for me, one of the things that it does is it allows me to go to places that I might not go to. So, if you go to Hawaii, let's say, you'll spend a lot of time on the beach, which is awesome. You'll spend a lot of time in the hotel visiting small things, but you might not spend an evening up at the top of Haleakalā, and taking the astrophotography gear with you might encourage you to do that. And honestly, it's so beautiful up there. I now go there every time I manage to visit that island, because I think it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And if you are going to go and it happens to be a full moon, I think filters definitely help. The SV240 is the one that I will make sure to always bring with me, because it is a little bit of a wider band pass, and I think it'll let you shoot a little bit more variety of targets. But here in the backyard, because I have access to, all of my filters are always here all the time, I was actually surprised at how well the SV220 did. It did better than the SV240 here in the backyard. I think that's because there's so much light pollution here that the SV240 just let all of that in, and the SV220 didn't. So I think it's kind of an interesting, it's a little counterintuitive. So let me know in the comments what you think about these results. But I'm excited to try a little bit more travel, maybe somewhere not as crazy far as Hawaii from Southern California. But I know I can go inland, and there's like Anza Borrego State Park. There's some good state parks that have access, where I can get access to really dark skies, to maybe do some follow-ups to these. Honestly, I kind of want to reshoot the SV220 data from a dark site, because something about it just doesn't hit me as right. I did, as a reminder, I did take flats for each one of these. That is now a part of my process, especially for images and experiments that I'm going to show here on the channel. I did take flats with, I did t-shirt flats essentially, but I did see that helped even at, at this focal ratio. That did help. So, here's another plug for always take your flats. They're really important. One last personal note, I follow Dylan O'Donnell. He's a YouTube astronomer from Australia, and his style of content is something that I actually try and emulate. I think he's very approachable and sort of honest, and not super polished, and I really like that. I hope he doesn't take that as an insult, but he was one of the influences that finally pushed me. Just watching his videos pushed me to want to create this YouTube channel, because I felt like we needed more people in the hobby that were, a little bit more like Dylan. And he runs the Byron Bay Observatory. So first of all, go get subscribed to his channel. He did make an announcement a couple days ago that he's dealing with some pretty serious health issues. So if you hadn't seen that, and you know of or have heard of Dylan O'Donnell, go find him on Instagram or on X or Blue Sky, and send him some love. He's got a whole story there. It's really sad to hear. I hope he gets through it. So Dylan, you and I have never met. I don't know you personally. We've chatted a little bit online, but I'm rooting for you, buddy. And it really puts a lot of things into perspective. And I'm going to steal your line on this one. Remember, what is it? Life is meaningless and we're all going to die one day. I'll have to get the exact quote, but I think about that all the time. So I hope you pull through this, buddy.
And like I said, to anyone watching this, if you're not familiar with any of his content, it's Dylan O'Donnell, the Byron Bay Observatory, and he's one of the best YouTube astrophotographers that exist out there. So go watch some of his videos and send him some love on the internet, because I'm sure he could use it right now. So with that, I'm Francisco, and this is Deep Sky Labs. Clear skies.